What's in a name? Now, if you just want the news and the headline, I mean, look, the headline says what it says, right? Like, we know the name of Nintendo Switch 2, or at least we feel like we do, because of something that just happened, and it's Nintendo Switch 2. You can go down to the timestamps down below and skip right to the section that shows the actual stuff. It's based on a well-known insider, and we're going to dive into that. But I want to start this conversation in an honest direction. And the honest direction is Nintendo is kind of weird when they name things, right? We had the DS, which was named after the fact that the Nintendo DS had two screens, right? Dual screen. And then when they made the sequel to that system, they called it the 3DS. Why? Sort of a clever play on words that it's still a dual screen system, but it has glasses-free 3D. So you can look at this and go, Nintendo's names always seem to be based around something to do with the system. Like the Nintendo Entertainment System was literally just, hey, here is a box that has entertainment and it's made by Nintendo, so Nintendo Entertainment System. Hey, we made a new box with entertainment that's more powerful. Let's call it the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Oh, but now the N64, hey, we have 64 bits. We're now making 3D games. We're going to name it after the bits of the system. And then GameCube, hey, we made this into a lunchbox that looks like a cube. We're calling it GameCube. Then you go over to Wii, and Wii is kind of the weird one because it's not really based on anything. You could argue it's, I don't know, Wii would like to play, right? We know the marketing, but if you think about the name Wii, it's not really based on the design of the console or even the controllers. Maybe it's based on the gameplay concepts, I suppose. Then you get to the Wii U, and to this day, I still don't even know what the U meant. Their marketing, if you remember the early days when they were talking about the Wii U, they said it is a Wii for you.
Of course, there is one more order of business left for us today: to make a proper introduction to a new gaming companion. You might remember how the Wii name began to make perfect sense once you started hearing it as Wii. It was clear how much fun we all had playing together, even with people who weren't gamers before. But in thinking about a new Nintendo system, we knew the prevailing thought would be this: yes, the game will probably still be right for all of us, but could it also be a perfect fit just for you? And the answer to that question is an emphatic absolutely. In fact, we're so convinced of it that we put that pronoun right in the name. So today, welcome to the world of Wii U. It's a system we will all enjoy together, but also one that's tailor-made for you.
If that was their original marketing plan, I don't really get it. I mean, that marketing plan was already bad from the get-go. So whatever, we all know the Wii U didn't do very well. But Nintendo's always had this way with the way they name products. So it's always based on the product itself. And here we are with the Nintendo Switch, right? We know the Nintendo Switch is called what it is because you are allowed to switch the way you play games in multiple ways on the fly. So TV mode to handheld to even tabletop mode for the handful of people out there that do use tabletop mode. I know I use it very sparingly, but I have used it. It is a convenience the Switch offers. Use the kickstand, set it on your counter, set it on your nightstand. Again, it is not something I use often, but hey, because I have that capability, I do use it in the few situations that I feel like it's meant to be used, at least meant to be used for my life. So when we talk about there being a sequel system to the Nintendo Switch, where the system's still going to be switching between those three modes, you start to get to this point where how can Nintendo brand this? Now, we've talked about other names besides Nintendo Switch 2, right? We've talked about things like Super Switch. Hey, it's just a more powerful, right? This goes back to the NES days. It's just a more powerful than the current thing. But the problem is the Super Nintendo Entertainment System didn't sell as well as the Nintendo Entertainment System. And we could talk about all the reasons why, such as there being more competition like the Sega Genesis. What we could also point to is that Nintendo Switch didn't have any competition either when it came out. And now it's got handheld PCs and rumored handhelds coming from both Sony and Microsoft. Nintendo Switch 2 could literally be facing the same conundrum of the Super Nintendo. Whereas, hey, if we mess with the branding too much, other things might take over the market. So Nintendo wants to maintain some sort of brand fluidity. PlayStation did that a long time ago, going with the PS2, 3, 4, and 5. Eventually going to be a 6. Xbox has just never had brand fluidity. Maybe a large reason why many people think they might be out of the market here in the next 10 years, at least in terms of consoles, not games. They own too many big game studios. They're going to bring those games everywhere. Remember, everything's an Xbox now. You don't believe me? Just listen to their marketing plan. Here's an image of it. Your phone's an Xbox, your TV's an Xbox. Hell, when the Switch 2 comes out, they'll probably call that an Xbox. Look, we're not going to get into Xbox's marketing plan, but clearly it's all over the place and not very indicative of keeping a system, a console, consistently successful. So that leads us, obviously, to the name of Nintendo Switch 2 and what's going on with it. Now, before I dive in, I'll just remind you right now that, hey, we are on our road to 140,000 subscribers. So stay updated on all things Switch 2. All you got to do is subscribe right here. But we have some interesting stuff coming in from an insider. And this insider has a 100% track record. Very weird one, but also literally he's been the most reliable person pretty much ever, even though he got his own self busted by not going off the record with a journalist when he thought he was off the record and exposing his source. And kind of weird, but they've leaked things since those days and been right. So we're going to go ahead and look at this tweet here, originally by Necrofelipe, who made what I believe to be the closest look at the Nintendo Switch 2 logo. I want to point out when looking at this logo here that I have seen some images from that next handheld person of the dock, including the logo. If that stuff is accurate, this is literally the most accurate representation of what I saw on the front of the dock, assuming that those images were correct. So, pretty crazy. Now, I have not been, I want to admit right now, 100% on the Nintendo Switch 2 train. I've been 100% on the, I want it to be called Nintendo Switch 2. I think it makes the most marketing sense, but I am not on the whole, or wasn't anyways until today, 100% all in on believing it. I was maybe 60% in on it will be called Nintendo Switch 2 because, again, Nintendo's never used numbers. I just went over a bunch of their systems. They don't use numbers to indicate sequel systems, even if it makes sense to do so. They just haven't. So why now? Well, we'll get to that in a bit, but let's go into what happened off of this post. Because right now, this is just someone editing a logo saying, according to sources, the console will in fact be called Nintendo Switch 2. And I'm assuming he's meaning his own sources at this point because we obviously already have other rumors. I feel like he would reference other rumors. So he must have his own sources on this. And he says, I made one more small adjustment to be more precise in what the logo for Nintendo Switch 2 should be. And I do think this is the most accurate one. In fact, you can see my response right here pointing out that I do think this is the most accurate representation of the logo. Now, why does this matter? What are we talking about? Well, you guys might remember Pyoro. Sorry, Pyoro, the bird. He's privated his account, and if you don't already follow it, you can't follow it now. And he rarely posts anything, but when he does, it's always pretty legit. So let's get into this. So we're gonna go back to what looks like the same post, but actually a response here saying Necroflip is saying, cell phone notify me that Pyoro liked this tweet. Now remember, Pyoro has done leaks through likes and comments, and here he is saying nice logo with the spyglass there. And Necrofelipe responding with the, So, yeah, it's looking very likely here that Nintendo Switch 2 is indeed the final name. So many sources saying it, right? Lots of people saying it, lots of rumors pointing it out, leaked images that they're technically not on the internet yet, but they're in the hands of lots of content creators and other people. Seemingly everyone has these images from Next Handheld, but all of us are being very good about not actually showing them online. So credit to us not providing them the people that might do that. That being said, I do think that it seems like Nintendo Switch 2 is a lock. For the first time since I've been begging for Nintendo to use this name over a year ago, I am now fully on board that Nintendo Switch 2 is literally just called Nintendo Switch 2. And I think it's the most obvious thing Nintendo could do, but I also think it's the right thing to do. Numbers have been an indicator of what's next in every piece of tech, whether it's, hey, we have like the 5000 series GPUs coming out. What are they following up? The 4000 series GPUs. 9000 series AMD following up the 7000 series AMD. This is just how things go. iPhone 15 to 16, Samsung Galaxy 23 to 24 to what's going to be 25 next year. That's just what we do. Numbers have been an indicator to consumers for a long time that a bigger number indicates this is a new generation and a more powerful, bigger, better version of the last generation. And if Nintendo Switch 2 is literally everything that we've heard it is, which is a bigger, literally, more powerful, literally, Switch, then it would make a lot of sense to slap a 2 on it. I know that some people think Nintendo's got to always go with these like massive gimmicks and all of that. That's not actually traditionally what Nintendo does. The gimmicks always come in play when Nintendo feels backed into a corner because what they're doing isn't working anymore. And so they don't feel backed into a corner. In fact, Nintendo's the market leader. And we talked about this in our last video, but DFC International not only thinks Nintendo is the market leader, they think they're going to stay the market leader and that one of Xbox or Sony are going to end up falling out of the industry, at least in terms of consoles. Probably Microsoft at this point, if we're completely fair, but who knows? Maybe Microsoft releases a console and it ends up blowing up while Sony struggles again. We've seen that before, actually, with the PlayStation 3, where Xbox fired out the gate with the 360, and PlayStation really struggled to find ground with PS3 for a good 4 to 5 years before it had a really great end to the generation and did eventually outsell the Xbox. But there's no doubt from DFC International, Nintendo Switch 2's places in the market. Nintendo Switch 2's place in the market versus the PS6 and whatever Xbox is doing is at the top. And at the top by a pretty hefty margin. So I think part of that is because of the branding. The branding just makes sense. If you think about it, what is the current best-selling platform of all time? PlayStation 2. Now, Switch might pass it. We don't know yet. But it is number one at about 60.24 million or whatever that exact figure is, right? 160.24. Switch may pass it. But regardless, I think Switch 2 could end up passing Switch, especially if DFC International's projections are right. They're saying 80 million units by the end of 2028. That is insane. So I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say, I think this is the right move for Nintendo. I think it is the only move for them if they want to maintain success. I also think this helps them overall with their branding. They don't need to rebrand Nintendo Switch Online because, again, you don't have to. You just put a 2 next to the Switch logo. You don't have to rebrand anything. You get to keep things moving forward. The Switch brand is as big as it's ever been, 127 million active players. There's not really a reason to rock the boat and go in this massively different direction than everyone thinks Nintendo always does, which if you look at the history of their company, isn't actually true. They stick with things that are successful. They're not stupid. They like money. Nintendo likes money. They only, when not making money, decide to go in drastic directions. So Nintendo Switch 2 makes a lot of sense. I'm really happy about it. I'm very confident this is the name. Again, Nintendo hasn't announced anything officially on the docket. It's Nintendo Switch successor. Officially behind the scenes, thanks to the confirmed by the Pokemon Company Terra leak, Ounce is the actual code name behind the scenes. Because that Terra leak's been confirmed by Nintendo and Pokemon Company, we can just say straight out, we had already multiple reasons to think it, but Ounce is the code name. So we know Ounce is the code name. We know Nintendo's calling it publicly the Nintendo Switch successor. And now everything behind the scenes and publicly from people like Pyoro is that it's Nintendo Switch 2. So I'm very happy with that name. I hope you guys are happy as well. I know it's boring. I get it. It's a boring name. It's an obvious boring name. But you know what? You're going to buy it anyways, right? It could be called the Super Switch. It could be called the Switch Attach. It could be called all these other names. You're buying it. You know why you're buying it? It ain't because of what the logo is or what the name is. Mario's there. Pokemon is there. Fire Emblem. Animal Crossing. Zelda. Xenoblade. New IPs from Nintendo. Splatoon. You're buying it because of the games. Because in the end, and I can't believe I have to keep saying this, but for some reason people in the comments don't get it, games are why we play, not systems. I don't have this, massive Nintendo fanboyism for a system. I have it for the things I'm playing on the system. The Nintendo Switch generation is my favorite generation of Nintendo because of the games. Hopefully Switch 2 can even top that. And I look forward to it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Nintendo RoboJets from Nintendo Prime, and I'll catch you in the next video.